Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about soil conservation. And hopefully you've already gotten the dirt on soil by looking at my presentation about soil and soil profile. Now that you've already found out a little bit about soil, we're going to talk to you a little bit about the need for soil conservation. And I'm going to start by first telling you about soil as a natural resources, give you a little bit of background history about soil and why it became an issue to be conserved, and then tell you about the various methods for conserving soil. So let's get started. First things first, soil is considered a natural resource, and before I talk about that, I need to explain what a natural resource is. It's anything in the environment that humans can actually use. And there are several examples of natural resources, which include timber, minerals, oil, air, water, etc. Now, soil is one of the most valuable natural resources. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because plants depend on soil to live and grow. And guess what? Humans and animals depend on these plants, and we also depend on other animals that depend on the plants for food. Fertile soil is actually in limited supply. This means that there's not much land for farming. So that's a concern, and therefore it makes us wonder, how do we get more fertile soil? Well, unfortunately, it takes a long time for soil to actually form. And so we're going to look about how this soil damage can actually occur. If you look at human activity, it can drastically affect the environment or change the soil altogether. The value of soil is reduced when soil actually loses its fertility and when topsoil is lost due to a process called erosion. So let's talk about loss of fertility. Soil that has lost its fertility is said to be exhausted. Soil loss occurred in the early 1800s in the southern region. The primary culprit for this was cotton growth. Soils in which only cotton had been grown caused the soil to be drastically exhausted. It wasn't until George Washington Carver developed new crops and farming methods that helped restore soil fertility in the South. He used peanuts as a way of making the soil more fertile again. Peanut plants are legumes. These legumes have small lumps on their roots that contain nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Now, nitrogen is an important resource for plants. So let's talk about loss of topsoil. Whenever soil is exposed, water and wind can quickly erode it. Plant cover can protect soil from erosion. Plants actually serve to break the force of falling rain, and plant roots hold the soil together. Wind is another cause of soil loss. Wind erosion can occur in areas with dry conditions. In the next slide, you see how there are plants that are inside of the soil and used to prevent this type of erosion. Here you see another example of how vegetation can be used to prevent soil erosion. Now I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit of a story about why soil conservation became such a concern. Now this starts off in an area called the Dust Bowl. Now the Dust Bowl is located in the Great Plains region. Now the Great Plains region is where farmers settled there because of available fertile soil. Well, unfortunately, during the time period of 1931 to 1939, this region was occupied by severe drought. Plowing had removed the grass from the Great Plains and exposed the soil. During the times of drought, the topsoil dried out and turned to dust and blew away. I'm going to show you in this image here that there's the highlighted shaded region has where the Dust Bowl was located. Now, the Dust Bowl, by 1930, most of all the Great Plains had actually been turned into farms or ranches. Long drought, however, turned this soil into dust. The wind blew the soil east in great black clouds. Dust bowls actually ruined farmland in parts of the Great Plains. The Dust Bowl also helped people realize the value of soil. Now, farmers adopted new methods to help save their soil, and this occurred during the Great Depression. So here's some cool images. I guess they're cool, but there's some images to kind of give you an idea of what the Dust Bowl actually looked like back then. And as you can see, soil can easily be transported and cause such a dangerous effect to our environment. So that therefore paved the way for the need of understanding soil conservation, and consequently, um, farmers then kind of adopted these modern methods for soil conservation. Now let's talk about the definition of what soil conservation is. Now, soil conservation is the management of soil to prevent its destruction. Soil can actually be conserved by a few ways, but today I'm going to discuss four of them. One is contour farming, the other is conservation farming, another is crop rotation, and then terracing. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about each one of them. So let's go ahead and get started talking about contour farming. Now, during contour farming, farmers plow and plant their fields along the curves of a slope. This helps slow down the runoff of excess rainfall and prevents it from washing all of the soil away. Now, with conservation farming, the farmers disturb the soil and its plant cover as little as possible. Dead weeds and stalks of the previous year crop are left in the ground to help return the soil's nutrients, retain its moisture, and hold the soil in place. This has also been called low-till or no-till farming. Now, another method is called crop rotation. During crop rotation, a farmer plants different crops in a field each year. Different types of plants absorb different amounts of nutrients from the soil. Corn and cotton absorb large amounts of nutrients. Year after planting these crops, farmer plants crops that use fewer nutrients such as oats, barley, or even rye. And then the year after that, the farmer sows legumes such as alfalfa or beans to restore the nutrient supply. Now, the final method that I want you to be aware of is called terracing. Terracing is a method where lands are sloped using steps to prevent runoff from washing everything down. Now, if you look at the image, it almost has kind of a downward slope in the hill, and you can actually see the steps indentions, and these are set up so that as it rains, the water can only fall but so far, and it won't fall completely down the slope, taking with it any type of natural vegetation or healthy nutrients. And so this is the fourth method for protecting the soil surface. Now again, to reiterate the four methods of soil conservation that we discussed today, they include contour farming, conservation farming, crop rotation, and terracing. And so today we've covered four of those methods, and thank you.